Welcome to episode 3 of Life in Whitecourt, the weekly online video show meant to connect you with the people, places, and events for living an abundant life in a small town. I want to start with a thank you to those first viewers who have made it through these first 2 episodes. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It is just so fulfilling to know that you have found the first couple of episodes compelling enough to watch through to the end, and I hope to continue to bring you the episodes that you want to see. Our first segment features an interview with the local business owner who brought us one of the trendiest health and wellness trends that is taking the health and wellness industry by storm, really. It's called a float tank, and we'll learn all about the history and benefits of floating with our guest Evania Wowyeda from Footprints Massage and Wellness right here in Whitecourt. In the second segment, I'll share a presentation that I originally developed for a Toastmasters presentation. And it's all about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, local shopping. And I'll be challenging you to think local first and do the math in that segment. Then we will join our returning health and wellness correspondent, Sarah DeCiccio. She'll be coming in from her kitchen in Fox Creek with her brand of holistic health advice that she's learned as a certified holistic health coach. Then we are going to talk about romance, specifically taking back the Hallmark holiday and making it more meaningful on a personal level for you and the loved ones in your life. It's a lot to cover, so let's get started with a word from our sponsors who, without them, this show would not be possible, and I am ever so grateful to each and every one of my viewers and my sponsors.
At Inspirations Flowers and Gifts, we are dedicated to bring you trendy home decor and craft ideas. One of those being American Paint Company's clay chalk paint. Check our Facebook page for classes on how to use this safe and easy product.
We've had a float tank in Whitecourt for about 1.5 years, and more people are opening up to try it out.
Water has been known for its healing properties since the beginning of time. Float tanks were first introduced as a therapy in the 1950s. They gained popularity throughout North America under the name isolation tanks or sometimes sensory deprivation tanks. While they appeared to disappear from the public eye for a while, scientists continued to study the benefits of flotation therapy. And the science is clear. There are a great many benefits to float therapy, and as Evania explains, it's a combination of the Epsom salts, the water, and the entire experience that makes it more than just relaxing.
Along with the deprivation of sound and light, the fascia system just starts unwinding and releasing, and then you eventually have a DMT release. DMT is chemical release during death and birth, so it combats trauma or stress in the body, and the fascia it just starts relaxing, and so as it relaxes, your posture starts correcting. You have a really deep sense of relaxation, way further beyond the massage. It's almost like being reborn in a sense.
While claustrophobia is a fear that is expressed by many first-time floaters, Evania has found that the floating experience is actually very effective in getting over that fear.
There's actually quite a bit of people that are claustrophobic, more than aren't. I didn't realize that until I started doing the float business. No one is obligated to shut the door by any means. anyone who has expressed that they have fear of being in closed spaces has shut it after 10 minutes, with the exception of one. And they're like, I wish I would have just shut that sooner because it was so relaxing. I didn't feel afraid. And again, because of the DMT release, anything that's contributed to the claustrophobic phobia, it's kind of lessened. So after they float, they're not as afraid to be like enclosed in other areas. Like if you're like all of a sudden stuck in a bathroom stall or something like this, like they're just not as nervous generally than before.
So what does it feel like to float?
It's really relaxing. You kind of feel like you're in outer space as well. Some people can describe it like that, or like being in the moon. That's really comforting. I didn't comprehend what that could mean because we have no memory of being in the moon, but it did have a very familiar, comforting sensation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing that I know that people are a little bit, but that they might not know is that it's helpful with the magnesium and getting magnesium into the body, which we know is a health benefit as well.
Magnesium is something that your muscles do need. It also absorbs calcium from the muscles when we're working out or really busy, just moving our muscles. Calcium is used in muscle movement. So if we have an overdevelopment of calcium in the muscles, then we have muscle pain. So when you're floating, the body absorbs a lot of that magnesium, helps with the calcium absorption, and the muscles really relax for the movement.
Now, you also have a program where a person can get a float and a massage. What would you say the benefits of doing that? Does that just amplify the experience?
It's really beneficial for somebody with a lot of fascial tension in the body, or just really chronic pain, or just somebody that wants to go further into relaxation. Once the body's released from floating, they're like putting on the table, and we can really sink in deeper into the muscles with that resistance. So a lot more can be done in a massage session after a float than just consecutive massages.
Great to know.
Well, I can say too, there's a wide variety of benefits, not just for muscle pain. It's really good for cognition. Students that are enrolled in full-time study programs have found great benefit in being able to sit down, concentrate, and retain the information that they're going over, especially when you're going to school, you have kids, or a lot of parents go back to school mid-career for studying and all this other distraction mentally going around. It really allows you to focus on what you're doing, or even if you're just a business owner, you can focus on a multitude of tasks with clarity. It clears a lot of stress from the body, mental stress as well as physical stress. It's really good for athletes in that there's a lot of competitive sports, a lot of impacts involved, and so the body tenses up over a period of time, even when it's relaxed, because the body's still protecting itself. So we've had a couple more competitive athletes come in, and the results that they've found from it, they're really enjoying it.
And for somebody that is going to come for a float on a regular basis, how often would be recommended?
It really depends on what your goals are. If you just want to come relax, we have people come in once a week, or we've had 2 pregnant clients come in quite far into their pregnancy. One was breech and one had placenta previa, and both babies turned, and both women were able to deliver naturally. The physicians were like, "What have you done? We've tried everything," and so that was really incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Another amazing story was I had one lady. She had been in a severe accident 4 years ago, and she was in chronic pain. She was getting all sorts of therapies, and she was quite emotional when she came out. It was the first time she hadn't been in pain in 3 years. I've had a couple people come out a little bit emotional, just with joy in the relief that they found, either from being able to finally shut their brain off and just to release and feel more normal, more relaxed, more blessing.
And I know that from my experience being in it, that feeling of total weightlessness is just amazing. It's hard to describe, but as you did describe it earlier with that feeling of being in space, it was very much like you picture the people on the other planets as they go bouncing. That is a sensation that you're just floating in space, or on a cloud, or some of those places that you can tend to get to in meditation. One thing that I would like to mention is that a person does not want to go in there juiced up on caffeine. This isn't something that you want to go in there with other what's the word?
Stimulants.
Stimulants, that's what I'm looking for, is that you don't want to have the stimulants before you go into the experience.
Absolutely. You're not going to have a good time if you drink a pot of coffee or even a cup of coffee before you come in. Probably not a good idea to have a glass of wine before you get going. I had time off around Christmas last year, had Christmas dinner, had a glass of wine, went in. Yeah, it wasn't good. I was in there for 5 minutes. So maybe no heavy meals before you go in, no alcohol. Medical marijuana has been a little bit more mainstream lately too, so I'll touch on that you don't want to be taking a joint or anything before you go into the tank, because that kind of already gives you a little bit of relaxation, and then once the DMT starts releasing, it's kind of an overload on stimulation as well, because too much is going on in the body at once. Other medications don't seem to be too much of a contraindication, as long as they're not being abused, of course. And it's amazing for addiction recovery, because the body's been in a trauma state for so long, especially when you're giving out stimulant like substances, I guess, after a prolonged period of time. The body is in a trauma state and wants to relieve that, so that's part of why addictions are so difficult to beat, is because it's just like it's wanting something. So when you're floating, it takes a lot of that away and helps the body recover and detox. So.
In this segment of Life in White Court, I'm sharing a presentation that I originally put together for a Toastmaster presentation. Toastmasters is, of course, one of those organizations that I belong to and thoroughly believe in, and hope that I'll see you at a meeting soon. In the meantime, this is a presentation that I have delivered twice so far, and that I am really excited to share with you, because it represents so much of why I believe in local shopping and supporting local businesses. I hope that you'll enjoy it. It is entitled, "What is Your Wallet Saying?" And it really is all about encouraging you to think local first and to do the math, because when you do the math, I think that you'll find that local shopping does make sense as a conscious and aware. What is your wallet saying? It is a case for local shopping, because I deeply believe in the people that live here and that are operating businesses here. It is not an easy thing to be a small town, small business owner, and I just adore some of the local business owners who are just trying to create community through the loves of the things that they bring here. And I'd like to encourage as many people as possible to discover the stories behind some of the local businesses that we are so blessed to have here. We have a lot of niche businesses here, and I'd like to encourage you to buy from them. One, because it makes sense on a financial level. And this slide really shows that. Now, I did not create this slide. This is one that I found online that shows the difference between where your money goes when you spend $100 at a locally owned independent business versus a non-locally owned business. And in this case, they are speaking more of the corporately owned non-local businesses. There are such things right down the middle as locally owned franchises, and that is where a lot of the local fast food comes in at, is within that locally owned franchise level, and that comes in, you know, about halfway point between where you would see your money going versus an independently locally owned business, a locally owned franchise, and a non-locally owned corporate business. And you'll find that within that franchise business is also those direct sales sellers. They keep about 35% in the local community when you spend $100 through a locally owned direct sales representative on average. And these are, of course, averages. Some businesses donate more on a local level, even if they are corporate. So you may find that through donations and local taxes, their input may be higher, but generally speaking, and on the average level, the more you spend locally, the more that stays here at a local level. And that's what I mean about it being financially advantageous to donate on a local level, because these are our neighbors, our friends, our community that own these locally owned businesses. And we know that on a financial level, that we are talking about how buying locally stretches your dollars. It goes into the profits, the wages, the procurement of goods, which basically means buying stuff that they need on a local level, whether it is from the stationery store or from the grocery store. And they also buy more local goods than the corporate entities. It is easier for a homemade hand seller of goods, creator of goods within the local community, to be within a locally owned independent store. And of course, there is that local charitable giving. On the small business side of things, we are very aware of how many worthy causes exist within our community, and they do wish, for the most part, the small business owners I talk to, they wish they could donate to everything. But as with all budgets, the budgets are finite, and tough decisions have to be made. But in general, they put more into charitable giving than those that are corporate owned. And really, shopping locally results in 3.7 times the local economic impact of buying at a national corporate-owned retailer. And that can mean a lot of money when you add it up together. It is those small decisions that add up to the big picture items. So why don't we buy local? A lot of us feel in our hearts that it is great to buy local, but we can see by the numbers that we see in the local marketplace, the lack of cars on Saturday afternoon as we drive through downtown. Why aren't we shopping local? Well, there's a few reasons, and they are legitimate reasons. One of the number one reasons I hear so often is that it's too expensive to buy local. And for some budgets, it is. But in most cases, it is just an excuse. We are, for one, often comparing apples to oranges. If you are comparing the price of a locally owned independent store in Whitecourt to a corporate owned store in Edmonton, the corporation is going to win. They can offer lower prices, buying on volume, but they're also offering a lot of goods that come from overseas. If we say that we value buying local and keeping our money within Canada, and then we go and buy from a multi-global corporation, then something is not balanced. And it is more expensive to buy in a locally owned independent store. There's nothing that they can do on their end to change that. They have smaller buying power, and they have a bigger, in most cases, shipping cost. Even when we are ordering online, we see that shipping cost in the way that's incorporated. One of the ways to reframe that it's too expensive is to remember to compare apples to apples and compare the quality of goods on a local level to the quality of goods in a local independent store in the places that we're buying from. If you're comparing our local independent retailers to the independent retailers that they have on 82nd Ave in Edmonton and 124th Street, then you're getting a better view of the pricing that is relevant to local independent retailers, whether they are in an urban area or a rural area. That's the reality, and that is the reason why I'd like you to rethink whether it really is too expensive. Of course, if you're buying goods from third world countries and places overseas, then they are going to be less expensive than those in the locally owned independent stores, and that's just reality. The other reason I often hear for not buying locally is that there's not enough selection. And that is true to a certain extent. We don't have as much selection in our smaller independent retail stores as even most of the retailers would like. But what they do provide is personal service so that you can ask for some of the brands and some of the things that you would like to see. Dealing with a local retailer means that you can ask and create a dialogue with the local retailer. It's something that you don't have the ability to do when you are buying from a corporate-owned store. You are limited to what's available on the shelves, and there really is no conversation about what they can do to improve their selection. So do speak to the retailers if you're not seeing what you see there. Most of them are more than willing to bring in what you would like to see, but you have to tell them, and you have to be willing to share with them what it is that you'd like to see. And that is one way to get over that not enough selection. And you know, the reality is you are not going to find everything you want here at the price that you want. And that is where I say do the math. Does it make sense to go to the city and buy what you need? And you may find that the math works for you in a specific situation. Otherwise, there are ways to get around that not enough selection thing. And one of them that I would like to encourage you to think about is buying from local youth and local designers. You can definitely find some unique and interesting things within the shops, because the shops that we do have here are really niche shops, and they do have some magnificent stuff from all over the world. I was recently in Whitecourt Workwear, and I saw some gorgeous, simply gorgeous shirts from Italy. They were a little bit above my price range, but they're definitely something to put on the wish list. And that's another thing about buying local, is that you can, with some assurance, know that they are always going to have some unique and different things, because they've heard the input of their people over the years, and they do work hard to try and bring a wider selection of things. And again, going back to communicate what you would like to see, and I bet you will see it soon in a store near you. What difference does it make to buy local? And this is where the, doing the math really makes the difference. If you do the math and what it means to our community when you buy. If you've been on Facebook, you've probably seen this image before, that if you spend $100 a year more on local businesses instead of chain stores, it will put an extra $3 million a year into our economy. Now that math is not quite right for our population. The math for our population within the Whitecourt and Woodlands County area, if every resident spent an extra $100 this year, it would be $1.4 million more that goes into the local economy. And that $1.4 million into a local independent marketplace would give them a lot more opportunity to expand and really make a bigger difference, because it is a difference that, what do they call that? Compounds? Yes, compounds, I believe, is the word. If you see that just $100 spent locally, and the more percentages of people that do that doubles the local effect. What this graphic shows is that compound power of working together. We heard it way back in the day on Sesame Street, my favorite show in the world. This is where buying from the people in your neighborhood really makes sense. It makes so much of a difference to the local fundraisers that go on in this community. The more that is made by the local retailers, the more that those organizations also benefit from choosing to buy local. And you don't have to think about this as a charity thing. The fact is, from statistics, the average Alberta family spends over $3,000 a year on clothing. You spend over $1,200 a year on personal care, and you spend over almost $4,000 a year on recreation. Those are based on 2013 numbers. This is what people were spending in 2013. And I realize the economy is not as awesome as it was back in 2013, but in general, these numbers don't tend to change through recession. We tend to put more on credit than we do on saving, even during these tough times. It's not the smartest thing to do, but it tends to be what real people tend to do, and that's, causes all sorts of economic stress. But let's say that you have halved that. You have completely cut your expenditures in half from 2013. If each resident only spent half of the Alberta average from 2013 in Whitecourt and Woodlands County, the tally would add up to over $91 million. That's the impact you could have by choosing to buy local. And yes, it might mean that you spend a little more on the things that you are buying, but they would mean so much more to the community that we live in and the community that we're buying it. Now, again, if it doesn't make sense with the math that you have within your budget, I know that I have lived through some lean years and it just wasn't feasible to make those choices and decisions that were more in line with the way that I believe. And sometimes you have to make those decisions based on the math in your family, and that's okay. And I can definitely, if you do in the future want to hear how to be a tightwad, I'm half East Indian, half Scottish, and I do know how to live on a tight budget. If you are not able to spend the average, you can certainly stretch your dollar to make it feel like you are. And another thing that I'd like to point out is with the minimalist and the attention to some of these environmental issues, it can be better to buy less and have it mean more. Now, some other reasons beyond the financial, beyond the fact that $91 million would do so much for the community that we live in if we spent it locally. The fact is that local can be healthier. You know, we've heard about the close to the source movement. Buying closer to home is healthier for you in terms of the food choices. They're more likely to be organic and ethically grown when you can tell where your food is coming from. And there are definitely lots of opportunities within our area for buying good, healthy, local food. It may not be at the local retailers, but we definitely have some fresh thinking thinkers and farms and co-ops that are happening within our area. And again, local is healthier, and it's not necessarily more expensive, especially compared to what I hear some people are paying for organic and hormone-free type animals in other places. We do have a great selection on a local level in the Whitecourt and Whitecourt area. And some say that it is better for the environment to buy local because you are getting the trucks to come here and not so many of the independent vehicles heading out on that highway to do the shopping. And of course, I'm not saying don't shop in the city. I'm saying just think local first, do the math and think local first. Because when you aren't on that road, it saves time. I mean, let's face it, when we go to the city, it does cost 2 hours of our time to get there. And they haven't invented, no matter how much I've begged and pleaded, they haven't invented the transporters yet to save all that time. So buying local, if you can do that and make that commitment, does save time. And it can be an adventure. I know that I am one to challenge myself to buy the way that I believe in and the way that I preach, and it can be difficult. And I know that because I have personally made it a challenge to shop local for Christmas for the past 10 years, and I've done it, and it has at times been difficult to find things that are appropriate for 3 young and growing boys, but I've hit the target 99% of the time. I just have one son that is sometimes not altogether pleased with the choices that I have made in the gift giving department, but it's an adventure to go out and look for those unique items within our community that can please the pickiest of gift receivees. So those are some of the other reasons beyond the financial that you might choose to shop local, or at least think local first. Again, I love to say think local first instead of shop local, because I know how frustrating it can be to go into local shops that don't live up to the ideal of what local shopping should be. We have some great finds, but of course we do have some that miss the mark, and some experiences that miss the mark. I do entirely see that as an issue, but when we think local first, our money, our wallet is telling the community and the business owners what we want more of. Because when you do choose to buy online or a big box store, these are perfectly valid choices, but when you make those choices, your dollars are truly saying that I want more of that. And if that is true for you, then it's completely valid. But if you are thinking that you'd like to be a more conscious consumer and do things that impact your life more personally, then buying local can be a way to do that and a way to live with more congruency with the things that you are saying and learning, especially if you are on that more holistic health and wellness style of thinking and doing. Thinking local first can help in that department too. It means so much to the retailers that you support. So your wallet is saying, I want more of that. When you think of your shopping, is what your wallet saying what you want it to say? Think about that and get back to me. I'd love to hear what you thought about this segment and what you think about the numbers and what are some of the reasons that you have for not buying local. I'd love to hear your comments and I'd love to hear where you love to shop local, because I'd love to bring them on the show and get them to share what they've got. I believe that by sharing the genius that we have within this community, we're going to get more of that. So those places that you love to shop at and that you'd love to see featured on the show, be sure to get back to me with those. And here is a
Hi, I'm Sarah DeCiccio. I'm a certified holistic health coach. I am the big boss lady of Finding Your Well Spot, which you can check me out online at findingyourwellspot.com. And I'm also partnered with USANA Health Sciences. So today I wanted to talk to you about gut health. All diseases begin in the gut, and that might be a very foreign concept to you. Like, how do diseases begin in the gut? Well, if your microbiome is off in your gut, if you're eating foods that are damaging to your body, even if you're eating healthy foods that may not be suited for your body, but you're not really identifying that, it can lead to food sensitivities, which can then lead to diseases. And so really your health is determined by how healthy your gut is. Now, this week on Wednesday, I'm doing a free webinar that I'm inviting you to join me on. That's going to go into the details as to how to determine whether or not you have a healthy gut and how to fix it if you don't have a healthy gut. So how many people do you know today that have thyroid dysfunction, pancreatic dysfunction, acne, even as adults? Think of children who are getting autoimmune diseases like Crohn's, colitis, eczema, psoriasis, asthma. There's way more allergies. There's way more things that younger people are getting and younger children are even getting it. And I'm seeing it all the time, even as I practice as a health coach, I'm seeing it a ton. And it's sad because really some of the issues which could be very detrimental to, a person's everyday life can be solved pretty quickly if you kind of change up your diet, include some supplements, and kind of just tweak your lifestyle just a little bit. And I've had great success with some of my clients already, and I'm willing to teach you for free how to identify some of these problems and how to fix them. So in my gut health webinar that I am doing, again, it's Wednesday at 7:30 in the evening. You can watch it from the comfort of your own home. And you can find the access to that webinar on the website www.winwithhealthyliving.com. Just go under the support tab and it will show you the link to the webinar that I'm going to be doing. I will also post it on my Facebook page, Sarah DeCiccio, Finding Your Well Spot, so you will also have that link. If you can't make it to the webinar, don't worry. I will have it recorded for you so then you can go back if you want to go back to it, or if you just are going to watch it for the first time and learn all about gut health. Gut health is the key to success, whether you're trying to lose weight, maintain your weight, take your health to the next level. Maybe if you do have a disease of some sort or a chronic condition of some sort, maybe you have depression, pain in your joints, whatever it may be, this webinar is really going to give you a different perspective on the way to look at maybe some of the conditions you might be suffering or maybe some of your loved ones might be suffering with. So please join me. Again, it's absolutely free. It's going to be between 30 to 40 minutes long. Again, all on gut health. There will be solutions as well. And of course, I will always be here to answer any questions that you have in the future. So again, join me on the Gut Health webinar. Please follow me. You can look me up on my website, www.findingyourwellspot.com, on YouTube, Finding Your Well Spot, Instagram, Finding Your Well Spot, as well as my Facebook page, Sarah DeCiccio, Finding Your Well Spot. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Are you in need of the services of a local locksmith? Do you have a key or lock related emergency and you need help in a hurry? If you're unfortunate enough to be locked out of home, whether you've lost your keys or it's broken in the lock, you need a locksmith you can rely on to provide help fast, no matter what time of day or night. A professional locksmith doesn't just get you out of a tight spot. We can also repair and service your locks and fit new high security locks and deadbolts where needed. A professional locksmith can also advise on the best locking system for your needs. But above all else, we help people feel safe and secure. So don't panic. If you have a key-related emergency, contact us now for complete peace of mind.
This segment was inspired by a conversation I had with one of our sponsors, the beautiful Noreen from Inspirations, Flowers, and Gifts. And we were talking about how jaded some people are about Valentine's Day. It has become more of a Hallmark holiday than something that is meaningful for those who are involved in romantic relationships. And there is a certain level of cynicism that goes into these celebrations for Valentine's Day. And so, being women of a certain age and with a little bit of experience in the romance department, we thought that we would come up with 3 simple tips and rules that will help you to take back the Hallmark holiday and make it more meaningful if you choose to do so. And the overriding thought behind all of this is that it really is the thought that counts. If you believe that it's just a Hallmark holiday and you don't want to do anything, that is a perfectly valid choice. But if you choose to do something, do remember that it is the thought that counts, and it doesn't have to be expensive. In order to be meaningful, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you have to break the bank or the budget for. Most women are more than happy to accept gifts that have little to no monetary value but have a meaningful connection. In Noreen's case, in her marriage, she is a widow, so this was, story of her late husband, but they had a meaningful connection to 3 roses. And if you drop in, she might just tell you the story about what those roses mean. Number 2 is that roses are nice, but they aren't necessarily the choice you want to make depending on what the love of your life likes in a flower. You may find that she likes Gerber daisies or tulips or carnations or orchids, as I do, and that can guide your choices when it does come to flowers. If flowers are indeed even something that she loves, you might find that chocolates or coffee or finding another gift is more appropriate. The point is that it should be geared towards what your love loves. And when you start with that, you cannot go wrong. So that's number 2, is that roses are nice, but other flowers can stretch the budget, and it doesn't necessarily need to be flowers. And number 3 is if you don't want it to be a Hallmark holiday, don't buy from Hallmark. You can make your own cards. There are certainly options available within town and around town for making your own cards and making it all that much more meaningful to the one you love. So the overriding point to this whole segment is, it is the thought that counts, and if you are thinking of flowers, you should book now. If you book at Inspirations Flowers and Gifts, you could win the value of your arrangement for free if you book by February 4th. For more information on that promotion, you can drop by Inspirations Flowers and Gifts. And remember, that you don't have to be jaded and cynical about Valentine's Day. Celebrate it the way that is meaningful for you. And that's, one way to live an abundant life, is to just do you. And that's going to impress the one you love most of all.
Hi, welcome to Inspirations Flowers and Gifts, the exclusive home of the Smile Bouquet. The Smile Bouquet is an affordable gift that can be given as a happy birthday, a get well, or just because. Portions of the proceeds of this particular design are given to charity organizations within the community of Whitecourt. Last year, we set aside $60 to go towards those charitable organizations, and would like to be able to double that this year. So come on down, share your smiles, and we'll share ours.
And that wraps up this week's edition